There is a moment that can completely change the dynamic in a relationship with someone who has strong narcissistic traits. It's not when you argue with them. It's not when you tell them you're leaving. And it's not even when you block their number. It's when they realize something much more uncomfortable. You are no longer emotionally available to them. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop checking their social media. You stop reacting to their provocations. You stop trying to prove that you deserve to be treated differently. And suddenly, they realize they've lost access to you. That's when their behavior may change. They might suddenly become incredibly nice. They might contact you after weeks or months of silence. They might ask mutual friends about you. They might post things designed to get your attention. They might suddenly appear to be living their best life. Or they might try something completely unexpected. But why? Why can losing access to someone trigger such a strong reaction? And more importantly, what should you watch for when it happens? In this video, we're going through 7 things people with strong narcissistic traits may do when they realize they can no longer control your attention, emotions, or access. And number 5 is one of the easiest to misunderstand. The first thing you may notice is an attempt to reopen communication. This is commonly called hoovering in discussions about narcissistic relationships. It can look completely innocent. A simple, "Hey, how have you been?" Or, "I was just thinking about you." Sometimes it's, "I miss you," and sometimes it's much more emotional. "I've changed. I finally understand what I did. Can we please talk one more time?" The important thing is not necessarily the exact words. It's the timing. Sometimes the contact appears precisely when you've stopped responding. You've finally started moving forward. You've stopped checking your phone. You've stopped wondering whether they're going to call. And then suddenly, their name appears on your screen. That can feel incredibly powerful. Because you're not just receiving a message. You're receiving a reminder of an emotional connection that you've been trying to break. But here's what you need to remember. Contact is not proof of change. Someone can miss your presence without being capable of maintaining a healthy relationship with you. So instead of asking, "Why did they come back?" ask, "What has actually changed?" The second thing they may do is test your emotional reaction. They may send a message and wait. They may like one of your old posts. They may watch your stories. They may suddenly appear in places where they know you might be. Or they may send something completely meaningless. "Hey, how are you? Long time. Why?" Because sometimes the response matters more than the conversation. If you respond immediately, they learn that the emotional connection is still active. If you become angry, they learn they can still affect you. If you start explaining yourself again, they learn that you're still emotionally engaged. And if you start asking questions about their life, they may realize the door isn't completely closed. This is why healing isn't simply about avoiding contact. It's about becoming less reactive. Because the goal isn't to make someone wonder, "Why isn't he responding?" The goal is to reach the point where you genuinely don't feel compelled to respond. This is one of the most confusing parts. The same person who once ignored your feelings may suddenly become incredibly affectionate. They may compliment you. They may remind you of the good times. They may tell you how special you were. They may say, "I never appreciated you enough. You were always there for me. I made a huge mistake." And maybe they genuinely mean it. That's possible. People can reflect. People can change. People can recognize their mistakes. But you shouldn't determine whether someone has changed based on one emotional conversation. Watch what happens after the conversation. Do they respect your boundaries? Do they accept responsibility without blaming you? Do they stop repeating the same behaviors? Do they remain respectful when you disagree with them? Do they continue behaving differently when they aren't getting what they want? Because genuine change doesn't need to be performed for one day. It becomes visible over time. Another possible reaction is trying to get your attention indirectly. You might suddenly see posts about their new relationship, their new lifestyle, their new friends, their new happiness. Everything appears perfect. And sometimes the content is unusually obvious. It feels almost designed for you to see. You might start wondering, are they trying to show me what I'm missing? Have they really moved on? Are they happier without me? And this is where you need to protect your peace. Because social media rarely shows the complete story. A picture is not proof of happiness. A new relationship is not proof of emotional growth. And someone appearing to move on quickly doesn't tell you what is happening privately. Don't allow someone else's carefully presented image to determine how you feel about your own life. This is the one many people don't expect. If direct communication isn't working, they may communicate indirectly through other people. A mutual friend might suddenly ask, "Have you spoken to them recently? They were asking about you. They said they really miss you." Or someone might tell you, "They've changed. They're doing much better now. They really regret what happened." This can create pressure, because now the message isn't coming directly from the person. It's coming through someone you trust. But remember, you don't have to make a decision simply because someone else believes the person has changed. If someone has genuinely changed, you don't need to be pressured into proving it. You can take your time, you can observe, and you can decide what is healthy for you. Sometimes losing access can lead to attempts to get an emotional reaction, a sarcastic comment, a subtle insult, a provocative social media post, a message designed to make you angry, something that makes you think, why would they even say that? And that's the trap. Because anger can still create connection. You may think, at least they know I don't care. But if you're spending 3 hours thinking about what they said, you're still giving them your attention. That's why emotional detachment is so powerful. Not because you're pretending not to care, but because you genuinely stop allowing someone else's behavior to control your emotional state. Peace is not proving that you don't care. Peace is when you no longer need to prove anything. And finally, they may change the way they describe the relationship. Suddenly, the painful parts disappear. The arguments become your fault. Their behavior becomes a reaction to something you supposedly did. They may tell people, "You were difficult. You were too sensitive. You misunderstood me." They were the toxic one. This can be extremely painful, especially when you know what actually happened. And you may feel an overwhelming urge to defend yourself, to explain everything, to show screenshots, to tell everyone the entire story. Sometimes there are situations where protecting yourself or correcting misinformation is necessary. But you don't have to spend your entire life trying to convince everyone of your experience. The people who genuinely matter will judge you by your character and your behavior over time. And sometimes healing means accepting that you don't need everyone to understand your version of the story in order to move forward. Here's the mistake I want you to avoid. Don't turn healing into another strategy for controlling the other person. Don't stop contacting them just to make them chase you. Don't post pictures just to make them jealous. Don't become successful just to make them regret losing you. Don't disappear because you're waiting for them to panic. Because if everything you're doing is still designed around their reaction, they're still at the center of your life. Real healing looks different. You stop asking, "Will they come back?" You stop asking, "Do they regret losing me?" You stop asking, "Are they watching my social media?" And eventually you start asking, "What do I want my life to look like now?" That's the real shift. If they contact you again, you don't have to make an immediate decision. Pause. Take a breath. Look at the history. Look at the pattern. And ask yourself some uncomfortable but important questions. Has their behavior actually changed? Have they taken responsibility? Do they respect my boundaries? Do I feel emotionally safe around them? Am I considering going back because I genuinely want the relationship, or because I miss the familiar connection? And perhaps the most important question, if nothing about this person changed, would I still choose this relationship? That question can reveal a lot. Because sometimes we aren't missing the relationship. We're missing who we hoped the person would become. If you've reached the point where someone no longer has the same access to your attention, emotions, and energy, don't underestimate what you've accomplished. You don't need revenge. You don't need to make them jealous. You don't need them to admit that they were wrong. And you don't need them to regret losing you. Your healing doesn't require their permission. And their reaction to losing access to you doesn't determine your value. So if they come back, pause, observe, and remember, a reaction is not transformation. An apology is not automatically accountability. And someone missing you is not the same thing as someone being capable of loving you in a healthy way. Choose based on the pattern, not the promise, not the nostalgia, not the temporary attention, the pattern. Because the goal isn't to make someone realize what they lost. The goal is to build a life where losing your peace is no longer an acceptable price for keeping someone. If this video helped you see these patterns more clearly, subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't watched our previous video, Why Narcissists Come Back When You Finally Stop Caring, watch that next. Because understanding why they return is one thing. Understanding what they may do after realizing they've lost access to you is another. And once you recognize the pattern, it's much harder to get pulled back into it.